What would you do if your family sat around the kitchen table laughing about how little you helped them while secretly living in a house you paid for? I didn't know betrayal could hit like that. Not until the moment my uncle sent me that video. It was late evening and I was finishing up a quiet Friday in my Phoenix home office when Uncle Jason's text popped up. "You need to see this. I couldn't stay quiet anymore." At first, I thought it was some old family clip. But the second I pressed play, my entire body went cold. There they were, my mother, father, and brother Thomas, sitting at our childhood kitchen table under that familiar Arizona sun chatting, as if I didn't exist. Well, I existed, but only as a problem, a burden, a joke. Lindsay only helps because she owes us. My mother said, her voice cutting like broken glass. "Yeah," Thomas chuckled. "She acts like she's doing us this huge favor. What a joke." And my father, the man who taught me to ride a bike, who held my hand through my first math test, he just nodded. No defense, not even hesitation. The video was shaky, clearly taken without their knowledge, but the sound was crisp. So were their words, crystal clear and cold. I watched it 3 times, not because I didn't believe it, but because a part of me still hoped I had misunderstood. But there was no misunderstanding. They thought I was just chipping in. They had no idea that for the last 4 years, I'd quietly paid the bulk of their mortgage, over $267,000, through an LLC I built to protect myself, to protect them even. They thought they were sending their monthly payments to a regular bank. What they didn't realize was that I was the bank. Divine Investments LLC wasn't some faceless institution. It was mine, my baby, my shield. And they never once read the fine print. It all started 4 years ago during the housing crash. The Phoenix market was sliding fast and my parents were about to lose their home. The very same house they were now sitting in, tearing me apart behind my back. I was 27 at the time, already working as a software development manager, quietly successful even though they never really understood what I did. "Software is no career for a woman," my mother used to say. "Thomas has real business sense. You just write code," she'd scoff. Funny. Thomas, the business genius, nearly drove Dad's real estate company into bankruptcy in under 2 years. And when they came to me tail between their legs asking for help with the mortgage, I didn't hesitate. I didn't hold a grudge. I didn't bring up their past jabs or the fact that they never once visited me after I moved out. I just called my financial advisor, Kate. Kate saw it clearly. If you're going to help protect yourself, buy the house through an LLC and let them think it's still the bank. They'll keep their pride. You keep your leverage. It was a clean plan, and it worked beautifully. For years, they never questioned why their mortgage payments were so manageable. They sent in their fraction, and I paid the rest month after month without complaint. And now, this. I sat in my chair numb, not from the betrayal, but from the realization that I had built their safety net, and they still saw me as a nuisance, not a daughter, not a sister, just a line item they wanted to cut. The text from Uncle Jason came again, this time gentler. "I'm sorry, Lindsay. They've been talking like this for months. I couldn't let it continue." My hands should have been trembling, but they were steady eerily, so as I pulled up the mortgage documents, that's when I remembered it. The clause. The one Kate had slipped into the agreement 4 years ago with just 5 words, "purchase option upon borrower default." Kate had insisted on it, just in case she'd said. I never thought I'd use it, but now those 5 little words gleamed like gold. I opened my spreadsheets. I had every receipt, every transaction, every bit of proof. Over $267,843 paid quietly, and they dared say I didn't help. That wasn't just ungrateful, that was delusional. I pulled out my phone and typed, "Thank you for showing me the truth. Don't worry, I won't say you sent it." But things are about to change, because for the first time in 4 years, I wasn't going to make the payment. I wasn't going to save them from the consequences of their ignorance. Let them see what happens when the burden stops carrying the load. Let them meet their real landlord. Because karma. Sometimes she just needs a push. From the outside, nothing had changed. The Arizona sun still painted the sky in burnt oranges and dusky pinks. The neighborhood still bustled with early evening walks and sprinklers hissing over tidy lawns. My parents' house, technically now mine, still looked like the picture of suburban peace. But inside me, something had shifted permanently. I wasn't their safety net anymore. 4 years ago, I thought I was doing the right thing, helping them keep their dignity, shielding them from foreclosure, letting them believe they were still dealing with a faceless bank. Back then, it felt like kindness. Now I saw it clearly. It had been a transaction, one they never acknowledged, one they took for granted. I remembered every detail of how the arrangement came to be. The day my parents came to me, panic in their voices, shame in their eyes, because they were going to lose the house. Thomas stood behind them, arms crossed, not saying much. I remember thinking he'll never fix this, but I can. So I created Divine Investments LLC, a name that sounded official, distant, and untouchable. We bought the house from the bank. I kept the paperwork clean and legal. My advisor, Kate, dotted every I. They never read the documents. They were too relieved to ask questions. To them, the name meant nothing. They just sent their modest $1.100 monthly contribution like clockwork, thinking it covered everything. It didn't. I paid $5.400 more every single month. That came out to $267,843 over 4 years. They never knew. Only Uncle Jason did. He'd overheard Kate and me at a family barbecue 2 years ago. Pulled me aside, his face tight with concern. "You're too good to them, Lindsay. They don't deserve it." I defended them, of course. "They're just old-fashioned," I said. "They've always given me a home." But that illusion shattered with the video. Their sneers, their casual contempt, my mother's venom-laced words, my brother's smugness, my father's silence. No more. I opened the LLC account and stared at the due date 13 days away. And for the first time since I created Divine Investments, I didn't feel responsible. I felt powerful. The clause Kate added, the purchase option upon borrower default, meant that if they missed even one payment, I could trigger immediate ownership. They'd go from unwitting homeowners to month-to-month tenants. And if they failed again, eviction, legal, binding, unstoppable. I wouldn't warn them. I wouldn't fight. I would simply act. The next morning, another bombshell landed. More screenshots from Uncle Jason, this time from a group chat. A private one apparently titled Family Finances. I hadn't been invited. I'd been deliberately excluded. That hurt more than I expected. In the thread, Thomas wrote, "Lindsay thinks she's so special with her little tech job. Barely helps with the mortgage while I'm here every day running Dad's business." Mom replied, "We should ask her for more. She's single, no kids. What else is she spending it on, and Dad? The man who once read me bedtime stories, we gave her everything. She's just selfish now." I stared at the screen, the words blurring slightly as my throat tightened. 267,843 selfish. That wasn't just betrayal. That was war. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. "Mom. Sweetie, can you come to dinner Sunday? We need to talk something important." I knew exactly what that something was. They were going to ask for more money, probably wrap it in nostalgia and guilt. A little lasagna, a little sob story, a lot of manipulation. I almost laughed. Instead, I texted Kate. "I need to know exactly what happens if they miss a payment." She called immediately. "I figured this was coming," she said. "If they default, Divine Investments can take full ownership immediately. You become landlord. They become tenants. Arizona laws are on your side. And if they don't pay rent?" I asked. "Eviction proceedings. Fully legal. I can have the papers ready." She paused. "Are you sure, Lindsay? This is your family." I thought about all the Sunday calls I answered, the birthday checks I sent for my nieces and nephews, the emergency payments I made when Thomas overdrew their accounts and blamed market volatility. I thought about the way they laughed at me, mocked me, searched my cloud storage when I visited trying to find leverage, trying to destroy my career. Yes, I was sure. "Don't worry," I said, my voice firm. "I won't confront them yet. I'll go to dinner. Smile. Let them think everything's fine." Kate chuckled. A perfect poker face. "They taught me well," I said. I texted my mom back. "Of course I'll come. Looking forward to it?" The heart emoji tasted like ash in my mouth, but it served its purpose. Let them think they still held the cards. The next 13 days would be a countdown, but not to the favor they expected, to the fall they never saw coming. There's something unnerving about being in a house you technically own while its occupants plot behind your back. That was the exact sensation crawling under my skin as I pulled into the driveway of my parents' Phoenix home that Sunday evening. The sunset painted the desert sky in soft tangerines and violets. From the outside, everything looked normal, familiar, but nothing was. I checked my purse one last time, not for lipstick or keys, but for the draft eviction notice tucked inside a plain folder, just in case. As I stepped up to the door, the scent of lasagna hit me, my mother's signature move, comfort food weaponized with precision. Lindsay, sweetheart, she greeted me with a hug that felt a little too tight. Her designer bracelet flashed in the porch light. I recognized it from a luxury brand I knew she couldn't afford unless she'd been skimming from their portion of the mortgage again. Inside, Thomas sat at the dining table like a smug little king, his button-down shirt, crisp sleeves rolled just enough to show off a Rolex I knew he didn't buy with his own money. "Hey, sis, good of you to make time for your family," he said, flashing that forced smile. I smiled back, my voice sugar-coated. I always have time for family. The irony tasted like copper. My father appeared from his study adjusting his glasses. I caught a glimpse of the papers he was holding, bank statements, probably rehearsing his lines for tonight's performance. The dinner table was set like a stage, lasagna steaming at the center, garlic bread on either side, and manipulation marinated into every detail. As I sat down, my mother started the show. Before we eat, she began reaching to place her hand over mine. We wanted to talk about something important. I nodded. Of course. "What's on your mind?" Thomas cleared his throat, his voice oozing fake concern. "Well, as you know, Dad's business hasn't exactly been booming. The real estate market's challenging." I chewed slowly, letting the awkward silence stretch. The Phoenix market was thriving. The business only struggled because Thomas was running it into the ground. My mother jumped in, her voice soft and syrupy. "We've been thinking a lot about how lucky we are to have a successful daughter. Your father and I sacrifice so much for your education." There it is, I thought. The setup. And with the mortgage being such a burden lately, she continued, "We were hoping maybe you could help a little more. Just an extra $2,000 a month." The gall. I took a long sip of water, making sure my face stayed neutral. They had no idea I was already covering $400 a month. No idea I'd kept their house afloat while they spent weekends in Sedona and bought new appliances every year, and now they wanted more. Thomas added with a casual shrug, "It's not a big ask, really, considering your salary." I tilted my head. "I'll think about it. Times are a bit uncertain right now," he snorted. "Come on, we all know you're doing fine. Some of us are actually working hard to keep this family's legacy alive." I held back a laugh. "Oh, you'll feel that legacy soon enough." "You're right, Thomas," I said evenly. "Sometimes we all get exactly what we deserve." After dinner, I excused myself to the bathroom, but instead of heading down the hall, I paused outside my father's study. The door was cracked just enough. Inside, I heard them. "She's not going to help Thomas," said bitter. "Did you see how she just sat there acting all superior?" my mother replied, "with her precious tech money while we're scraping to survive." My father's voice came next, low and calculating. "We have other options. I found something in her cloud storage. That company, she's hiding money in Divine Investments. It's an LLC. She's stashing funds while letting us drown." My blood ran cold. They'd snooped through my files, probably during my last visit when I'd foolishly used their Wi-Fi and synced my cloud. "She's been hiding money instead of helping us," he continued. "We'll give her one more chance to cooperate. If not, I'll bring up that tuition stunt she pulled in college. She thinks we forgot she took money from the business account," my mother added smugly. "She won't want anyone knowing about that. We'll get her back in line." My jaw clenched. That tuition stunt I had asked for help when their check bounced and I'd paid it back with interest, with proof. And then Thomas pushed it over the edge. If that doesn't work, I've got friends in recruitment. I'll plant some concerns about her mental state. Maybe suggest she's using company tech for side projects. That'll shake her up. I had to bite my lip to stop from gasping. These weren't my family. They were opportunists wearing the mask of love, predators circling for scraps of control. I flushed the toilet to cover my escape and returned to the dining room. Moments later, they joined me. Smiles, polished voices, soft. "Lindsay, dear," my mother said sweetly. "Have you thought more about helping with the mortgage?" I smiled, cool as steel. "Actually, yes. You're right. Family should help family. I'll have an answer for you in, about 8 days." Thomas frowned. "Why so specific?" I stood grabbing my purse. "Just need to check with my advisor. Being careful with money is just good business sense." I watched him flinch as I threw his favorite phrase back at him. At the door, my mother gave me another sugary hug. "We knew you'd understand. Family always comes first." I smiled. Yes, it does. And sometimes that means choosing a new family, one that doesn't use love as a weapon. The days that followed Sunday dinner were a masterclass in restraint. I went to work. I smiled in meetings. I took my usual evening walks through the Phoenix foothills. From the outside, nothing seemed different. But inside, I was steel, coiled, focused. They had no idea the countdown had begun. Their mortgage payment was due in 8 days. One missed installment and Divine Investments would legally take full ownership of the house. No more illusions, no more fake bank. I wasn't just preparing for a confrontation, I was preparing for war, and I knew they'd strike first. Sure enough, the messages started rolling in the very next morning. "Mom, sweetheart, just checking in. Have you spoken to your advisor yet? We're getting nervous about the mortgage. Thomas, hope you're not dragging your feet. We need real help, not another lecture." Each text was another thread in their manipulation web, but I didn't bite. Instead, I forwarded them to Kate, my financial advisor. We met for coffee that afternoon, tucked away in the corner booth of a downtown cafe. She slid a folder across the table. "Everything's ready," she said. "Once they miss the payment, you can trigger the purchase clause immediately. Legally, it's yours. And if they don't pay rent, we move to eviction. I even have the paperwork prepared just in case." I flipped through the document, scanning the signatures. My father's name stood out. Sloppy, rushed. Probably didn't even read the terms. "You're sure they can't fight it?" I asked. Kate shook her head. "Your dad was desperate. He signed everything willingly. They've had 4 years to ask questions and never did. The law is on your side." I nodded slowly. "Then let's wait. Let them believe I was stalling. Let them keep building their trap, not realizing I had already reset it beneath their feet." That evening, Thomas struck again. "Thomas, hey sis, just talked to a friend in tech recruitment. Some companies are doing layoffs, scary times. Good thing you've got family to fall back on." The sheer audacity. They weren't even hiding their tactics anymore. They were taunting me, pretending to care, while planting seeds of fear. It was comical in a sad way. I screenshotted the message and sent it to Uncle Jason along with a single line. "They're really doubling down." We met the next day for coffee, same cafe, different corner. He looked tired, like he'd seen this all before, because he had. "They never change," he said, shaking his head. "Your aunt and I distanced ourselves from them years ago. We saw how they treated your cousin when she tried to stand up to them." He paused, watching me. "Are you ready for the fallout I thought about the video, the group chat, their whispered plan to blackmail me with a fabricated tuition theft, the casual suggestion to sabotage my job? I thought about everything I'd done for them and how little it meant." "Yes," I said. "Let them burn the bridge. I'm already across it." 2 days before the deadline, my mother called. Her voice was soft, too soft. "Lindsay, honey, we need your answer. Times are hard and family needs to stick together." I smiled to myself. "Don't worry, Mom. Everything will be clear very soon." Later that night, I got the alert. Bank transfer failed. They had tried to send their portion of the mortgage payment, but their account was overdrawn. They didn't even have the $1, $100 they were supposed to contribute. That was it. The final thread snapped. I forwarded the notification to Kate. "Here we go," she replied. "Want me to file the paperwork first thing tomorrow?" I stared at the screen, and then I remembered that smug little dinner, the lasagna, the desperate rehearsed lines, my father's voice threatening to remind me of ancient tuition rumors, my brother ready to report me to HR with lies about my mental state. They wanted to use my own career against me. No, not this time. "Let's wait," I typed. "Let them think everything's still fine." For the next 48 hours, I let them bask in ignorance. I responded to nothing. No texts, no calls. I ghosted them like a shadow, but I didn't sit idle. Instead, I opened a new draft in my work email. Subject: HR documentation, potential external threats to employee safety and reputation. I attached every message from my family, the video, the group chat screenshots, Thomas's text about layoffs, the threat to contact my company with fabricated concerns. If they made a move, I would be ready. Let them try to poison the well. I owned the water rights. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan spin, I whispered to the darkness. Sometimes the best revenge is letting people dig their own graves. All you have to do is step aside. The morning the payment failed was quiet. Too quiet. No dramatic music, no cinematic thunderstorm, just me sitting at my kitchen counter sipping coffee as the Arizona light poured through the windows, calm, collected, ready. At 9:00 a.m., Sharp Divine Investments' automated system sent the official default notice to my parents' email. 12 minutes later, my phone rang. It was my mother. I didn't answer right away. I let it buzz a few times, let her stew. Finally, I picked up. Her voice was frantic. "Lindsay, something's wrong with the mortgage. Our payment bounced, and the bank's saying we're in default, but that's impossible. We need your help, immediately." I set down my mug, leaned back in my chair, and took a slow breath. "Actually, Mom," I said, my voice calm. "Divine Investments isn't a bank. It's an LLC, my LLC to be specific." The silence that followed was glorious, thick, disbelieving. What she whispered, "You'll find an email explaining everything I said. Because of your default, Divine Investments is exercising its purchase clause. The house is now legally mine. You're no longer owners, you're tenants, month to month." "This is a joke," she sputtered. "No joke," I said calmly. "I've covered over $267,000 in mortgage payments for this house, while you mocked me, called me a burden, plotted to destroy my job. I have every receipt, every message, every recording. I'm done playing dumb." There was rustling on the other end. Then my father's voice. "You ungrateful, careful," I said, steel sharpening in my tone. "Is that how you want to speak to your landlord?" More silence. "Your first rent payment is due in 30 days, I continued. "I've also attached a copy of the new tenancy agreement. If you fail to sign or pay, eviction proceedings begin immediately. You can't do this." My mother shrieked. "I already did," I replied and ended the call. Then I blocked all 3 of their numbers. Within the hour, the storm arrived. Emails from distant cousins, voicemails from family friends, all shrieking variations of, "How could you do this to your parents? Family is supposed to forgive. This is cruel, Lindsay." Cruel was being used like an ATM for 4 years and still being called selfish. Cruel was planning to ruin someone's career out of spite. I didn't read the rest. I deleted them all, unsubscribed from the family drama. Uncle Jason texted me a few hours later, heard the fallout started. "You good better than good," I replied. "I'm free." But the saga wasn't over. Over the next few weeks, they tried everything. They hired a lawyer who quickly realized they had no case. The contract was ironclad. Thomas even made good on his threat. He contacted my company's HR department, spinning some fabricated story about my mental health and using company resources to fund my secret business. But I had already warned HR. I'd submitted every piece of documentation days earlier. They dismissed Thomas's claims immediately, and not only that, they opened a formal ethics complaint with the Arizona Real Estate Board. That complaint, combined with Jason's evidence and Thomas's signature on the original LLC documents, triggered an investigation. Within 2 months, Thomas's real estate license was suspended. His already flailing career collapsed overnight. I wish I could say I felt bad. I didn't. Meanwhile, my parents tried guilt. My mother left a voicemail drenched in fake tears. "How could you do this to your own family, Lindsay?" I didn't reply, because I finally understood something. They had never been a family. Not really, not to me. I was just a resource, a bank account with feelings they didn't respect. 3 months after the eviction notice was served, I walked through the now empty house. My house. My footsteps echoed in the hollow rooms. I stood in the kitchen, the same one where they'd sat and laughed about how little I helped, where they plotted to blackmail me, where they acted like I was less. Not anymore. The house was clean, quiet, and finally mine in every sense of the word. Uncle Jason and his wife were due to arrive soon. They were helping me prep the house for sale. We'd already found a buyer, but I had something else in mind. I texted Kate, "Let's redirect the proceeds. I want to start a foundation, something for people like me, people recovering from financial abuse by family." Her reply came seconds later. "On it. What do you want to call it?" I stared out the kitchen window, watching the phoenix sky bloom in gold and lavender, and I knew. The first family fund, I typed, because sometimes the first real family you have is the one you choose. 3 months later, the paperwork was finalized. The house that once held every painful memory, every forced smile, every manipulative dinner, was no longer theirs. It wasn't mine either, not really. It was a symbol, a monument to what I'd survived, and it was time to turn that symbol into something new. Uncle Jason and his wife helped me walk through it one last time. Every corner had a story: the hallway where I learned to walk the staircase, where Thomas once pushed me, during a tantrum, the backyard where Dad used to praise my science fair ribbons before pretending I was just lucky. We moved room by room, boxing up remnants they left behind, forgotten dishes, a few dusty books, a framed photo of Thomas with a ribbon from a local real estate conference ironically taken the same year he lost his license. "It feels lighter in here," Jason said. I nodded, because for once, no one's pretending. The sale closed 2 weeks later. The wire transfer from the buyer hit Divine Investments' account by noon. I instructed Kate to route every dollar after fees and taxes into the new nonprofit, the First Family Fund, a grant-based program supporting survivors of financial abuse, especially from within families. Women, men, even teenagers who'd been taken advantage of, manipulated or guilt-tripped into giving away more than they could afford, emotionally or financially. For years, I thought helping my family was love. That self-sacrifice was the price of acceptance. But now I understood something far more powerful. Love without respect is just control in costume. The messages eventually slowed. The flying monkeys got tired. The extended relatives faded back into silence when they realized I wasn't going to fold. My mother tried one last time, a voicemail shaky and tired. "Lindsay, I just don't understand. After everything we did for you, after raising you, loving you, how could you do this? We're your family." I sat with that message for a long time. Then I deleted it, because the truth is they weren't asking for forgiveness. They were asking for access, and they lost it. Thomas never reached out again, not after the real estate board opened a second investigation into his fraudulent handling of company accounts. Last I heard, he was working out of a borrowed office space across town, reputation in tatters. My father stayed silent, maybe out of shame, maybe out of strategy. It didn't matter anymore. The only voice that stayed with me was mine. For the first time, I lived without looking over my shoulder. No late-night guilt texts, no sudden family emergencies, no shame, just clarity, just peace. Kate invited me to speak at a small finance conference a few weeks later. She introduced me as a software manager and founder of a growing nonprofit. I stood in front of 80 professionals holding a clicker in one hand and years of silent pain in the other. I thought I was helping them, that by sacrificing my boundaries, I was being a good daughter, a good sister. But the truth is, if someone only loves you when you're useful, that's not love. That's leverage. They clapped. But more importantly, they listened. Afterward, 3 women came up to me crying. One had drained her 401k to keep her brother's bar open. Another had co-signed a loan for her parents who never made a single payment. One woman whispered, "You just told my story." That's when I knew. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclamation, about turning pain into protection, silence into strength, burden into boundary. The next time I visited Jason and his wife, we toasted with iced tea on their patio. He handed me a tiny potted cactus. "It's not flashy," he said, "but it survives anywhere, just like you." I smiled. "I don't need flashy. I just need mine." That night, I wrote a note and left it folded in my old bedroom window of the now empty house. It wasn't for them. It was for me. I forgive you, but I won't forget. I've chosen my peace over your comfort. You taught me that family comes first, and now I'm choosing myself as family. As I walked out the door, locking it behind me for the final time, I didn't look back. Because the truth is, when you finally reclaim your power, you don't need closure. You are the closure. If you've ever been the helper, the fixer, the forgotten one, this story is for you. Have you ever felt used by the ones who were supposed to love you most? Share your story in the comments. I read everyone. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more true stories of rising above betrayal. Because sometimes the best revenge is never needing them again.